Alrighty. We'll get it rocking and rolling. So tonight we're going to be diving into another little Mindset Monday episode here, or coaching here, channel, chat, whatever you want to call it here. Jam session. I like more of a jam session, a community topic. But for Mindset Monday today, we're going to cover more so just kind of like the energies, that you allow into your life, and the energies that take up, space in your life, and also the things that will help you. So it's kind of related to, honestly, like what we were talking about earlier, Roxanne, on the podcast, but something that Mike, wanted to bring up, mainly just because of kind of like what he is in the transition of, as far as like the move and kind of like the reasoning why he really had the motivation to do that type of stuff. And I also have a lot of relation to that as well, just because I experienced that myself. As I moved down here to Tybee Island, Georgia, it was very much for the same reasonings, to get away from the situation that I was experiencing in Richmond, Virginia, just with my family and stuff like that. So, and to go a little bit deeper into that, you guys will actually, you guys should see exactly why I ran away from that situation. But to go a little bit deeper into that, what was happening was, so I moved away from Richmond, Virginia, to go to college in Myrtle Beach. And when I left college, I went back to Richmond, started working with a marketing company there that did local, marketing with like the professional sports teams and the newspaper, shit like that. So more so like kind of like a corporate style job. But long story short, I was there for probably like 3 weeks before I realized, all right, I need to get the hell out of here quick type of thing, but not for kind of like the real reasoning that got me out of there. So it was more so just because it was like one of those things where I just didn't really feel aligned with like Richmond, Virginia in general. It was where I grew up. There was a lot of bad things attached to like me growing up, being into drugs and all that type of shit, in high school and all that type of shit. So the fear that I had in my mind was, because I was going to be back in that place, I was going to be back into those things, that situation. So long story short, going to the real reasoning, my mom and her husband at the time, which on the outside was a very cool guy. We got along very well, but shit started going really far south with them. And it got to a point where he tried to kill her, and he ended up going to prison for that. And it was obviously a big ordeal, but that's what ultimately got me out of Richmond. That whole situation, it was like 8 months before he was ever even like, put away. And, during those 8 months, he was in and out. And all of these things were happening that was just taking up my energy. It was pulling me away from like what I really wanted to do. Number one, I was living with my mom at the time. So I was directly involved. So I really, tried to spend as little as time as possible at home, spent all my time at the office, and, just trying to escape, what I was going through. But as you can imagine, going back to the point of the topic, the energy was just crazy. The things that, could give me energy, like working out, and, like the positive actions weren't even available for me to be able to tackle that, so just because of the overall internal situations that I was like experiencing there, there was just no even space. I was fully consumed by, number one, trying to like stay away from it, be at work, but number two, just trying to busy myself with other activities, that kept me away from like inside, so alcohol, other things that allow you to run away. But moving forward, going into like one of the biggest things that I realized was like, I need to get out of this situation. I need to completely remove myself because it has completely consumed me. So that was like 2018 when I finally moved down here to Georgia. And, overall, like the energy was completely released of everything. I was down here on a completely new restart, very much experiencing like what Mike is experiencing now. I did have my girlfriend with me, so I had kind of like, some sort of support, along the journey. But at the end of the day, it was like a brand new start, so I was there, in a position to where I can create what I wanted to create. So I really thought like highly of that entire process, and I didn't really realize like the benefit of what I was doing at that time. But that's exactly what I did, is I put myself into a position to where I could reset and basically, you know, attract the things I wanted to attract. And I thought that was really important to talk about here because, you know, we have things that pull and give us energy all throughout the day, every single day, as small as a podcast and as large as, you know, somebody trying to take your mom's life. So, you know, I wanted to bring up that overall situation because, you know, that's something that we need to be conscious of on a day-to-day basis. You know, that's why people say like, don't look at your phone for the first hour of the day, you know, all those types of things. It's all based around kind of like your energy. And the way I look at it is very much like a gas tank. You know, if you get good sleep, you get good rest, you know, you give yourself good nutrition, things like that, you're going to wake up in the morning with a full tank of gas. Now you don't get good sleep, you're, you know, that's a different question. You're right. You're running on E from the get-go. But you get up and you have that full tank, you immediately start diving into these other things that will take your energy, and it's going to be very toxic for yourself. You all here, I'm sure that that's not like a big problem as far as your day-to-day routine or process, but I'm sure you're very much aware of the effects of that. So moving into kind of like the positive side of things, what can you do to kind of give yourself the right energy? You know, reading, journaling, you know, exercising, working out, walking, you know, all those types of things that are going to kind of let you create your own, you know, version of yourself. And that's kind of like what I think the biggest thing is. And so going into that, as far as like when I got here to Tybee, that was like kind of like the biggest thing. Number one, I was in a transition of like career too, because I left that position at the marketing company and I was finally like starting my own thing again, you know, for like the second or third time. And I started to get back into that trap of, you know, just allowing others to take up my time, take up my energy, take up my space. More so just trying to be like a social person, new person on the island, trying to meet new people. So when somebody needed help, they called me and, you know, I would answer. I would for sure go over and help them just to kind of build that relationship. And obviously, you know, that goes good and bad because it starts to get into that, you know, what I'm talking about, like overall the energy. So with that being said, you know, I've gotten to a point in my life where it's very clear as to like what the mission is. And I like to say that I used to have a problem of being like a yes man, you know, telling everybody, yes, I can do this. Yes, I want to do that. Yes, I want to go out on the boat with you and drink a 12-pack of Trulies. And yes, I want to do all these things, you know, but I started to realize what was beneficial for my energy or my lifestyle and what wasn't. You know, I'm sure you all know this, but you should have a list of things in your mind that are going to impact you positively and can take away from that energy itself. But with that being said, I just kind of wanted to share a little bit of, you know, kind of background as to like why we were talking about this topic and my own experiences with it. Mike has a little bit more in depth on like the scientific and the neurological side of things. So I'm going to transition it over to Mike. Mike, if you're ready and available, it looks like you are. So beautiful.
Yeah, awesome.
I'll transition it.
Sorry about the delay here, everybody. I got super lost on my first Austin hike and was trying to find the way back for a good hour. I should have been back like an hour ago. But anywho, I'm here now. So yeah, no, definitely the topic that I really wanted to cover for tonight and really deliver some message around is just the idea of change, an environment, and the idea of really auditing our environments as a whole, right? And right now my environment is awesome, but also a little bit crazy because I'm still moving in. I've got stuff all over the place. I couldn't even put together my desk. I like couldn't figure out how to put it back together after undoing it to pack it. So like I'm working from like my island and, you know, things are kind of all over the place right now. But when we talk about environments, right, this is an important topic for us to think about as a whole. And it's always a good one for us to audit and think about on a daily basis is like, what environment are we putting ourselves in that serves us? And what environment are we stepping into that doesn't serve us, right? And for me, right, to speak from experience as Mike was, I was in Colorado in a beautiful place that I loved. I loved Colorado, but given the experience that I had just moved away from and that I'm growing through, I realized that if I stayed in that position, if I stayed in that environment, it would perpetually keep me in that state of being the same, right? And for me, a lot of times my big environment change is a big move like this because it completely alters my perspective of how I manage my time and how I pour my energy into what matters most, right? And when we think about our environments and really shifting that environment to serve us, the biggest thing about that, and from the aspect of us as human beings and the neurological ways around this, is the fact that, you know, with having our mirror neurons that we have, if you guys aren't aware, we have mirror neurons in our brains that literally reflect energy around us. So if you are taking in information, or you are taking in positive information that is, you know, around you, or if you're in a positive environment, your mirror neurons are going to start to continue to produce those different sets of positive experience, those different feelings, those different chemical reactions that enable more success, more happiness, you know, whatever it is that's around you, right? So mirror neurons are something that actually replicate what you're ingesting as far as information and different processes and experiences that are happening around you. So for me, you know, being in a place where Colorado was a previous relationship, that was like where, you know, I was in that relationship. I had a lot of things going on. I had built so much that was attached to that experience. I would have continued to perpetually like stay in that state and continue to dig that hole for myself, as opposed to creating a new beginning and a new atmosphere, right? And this doesn't always have to be a big move. Mine just made sense because I had more resources in Austin, Texas. So it made more sense for me to move out here because I've got a lot more friends out here. I've got a lot more support, and I have people that are going to push me. So those mirror neurons are going to continue to, you know, push me forward and continue to reiterate that energy that's around me, right? And being around these people, being around, you know, people I look up to, people that I spend time with, I'm going to continue to reflect the person that I'm continuing to become on a daily basis, right? So that was why I made the move, was because of that logical reason. But when we think about environment as a whole, environment isn't just about the location that you live in. Environment is about the space that you work in. It's about where you're putting your time and energy, and what type of environment you're surrounding yourself with when you are putting out your time and energy, right? So when we think about that as a whole, to bring it around to what brings you guys value and what you want to think about in this topic, is like, how is your environment enabling maybe stuff that doesn't serve you, right? Think about, you know, the person who's trying to kick cigarettes or kick alcohol. Like, you probably shouldn't have alcohol or cigarettes in your environment if you're trying to kick it, right? That enables a trigger that allows you to have access to something that doesn't serve you, that you're trying to get away from, right? So when we audit our environment, when we audit our what's surrounding us, we can start to understand the triggers that lead us down a path of negative habits. And that's not always like something as, you know, as drastic as alcoholism or being addicted to cigarettes, whatever the case may be, but it might be something that pulls us away from our mission. It might be something that, you know, perpetuates a feeling that allows us to talk down on ourselves, to ourselves, right? Where we start to have negative thoughts about where we're currently at. And like, we start to have these feelings of self-doubt, and it's triggered off of something that we have in our environment. Maybe it's ingesting social media content and you're following the wrong people. And that is causing this like consistent basis where when you're following those people, you're seeing that content, it's letting you know, and it's triggering in your mind like some sort of unworthiness, right? There's all these different things with environment that to think about. It's not just location, it's your office setup, it's your work environment, it's your access to certain things. Like, so one thing that really helped me out with making this decision and overall just figuring out how do I put myself in the best environment every day to produce at the highest level was the most simple exercise I've ever done in my life. And this is an exercise I encourage you to all do. And I'm going to also ask you guys to contribute in the group chat as I get into this. But, you know, like, the assignment is literally as simple as creating a T chart. You guys remember T charts? It's literally just a T. One side is one thing, one side's the other. And if you can create a T chart and get super clear on what serves you and what doesn't serve you, you can make immediate decisions to step away from the things that don't serve you and step into the things that do serve you, right? So I want you guys right now, while I'm going to continue to expand on this, drop one thing into the chat that serves you. Like when you do it every single day, you feel empowered, you feel positive, you feel energized, you feel like you're going to crush the fucking world. Like you have that innate ability to serve at the highest level when you do this one thing. Like what's that one thing for you that when you do it on a day-to-day basis, you're like, this fucking serves me like no other. When I continuously do this, I feel great. And when you make that list, you become very clear. It's like, it's this awakening to the fact that like, okay, this shit serves me. So why don't I just continue to do this? Like, why don't I just stop doing that shit that doesn't serve me and start doing the shit that does? And now that you guys are dropping those into jeez. Now that you guys are dropping those into the chat, I want you to also drop stuff that one thing that doesn't serve you. And this might take a little bit more thought. The things that do serve us, oftentimes it's the first thing that comes to our mind. It's like working out, it's the meditation, it's this, it's that, right? But what are the things that don't serve you that pop up every now and then? You might not intend them to pop up, but it's something that, you know, might pop up around you. It's in your environment, or it's something that's popping up as social media content. You know, all these different things can happen. And when we get very clear on this, we allow ourselves to see the shit that serves us, the shit that doesn't serve us. And it becomes a clear decision as what we actually need to do, right? And what we need to do, all in all, is just stop doing the shit that doesn't serve us. When I started to really get clear on those two things, the things that do serve me and the things that don't, it was very easy for me to make the decision to get rid of the things that don't serve me. And when I was in this specific situation with this change in environment, I looked at that list and I made that list. The moment everything happened, I knew that, like, you know, the relationship was going to be in the past. Like, she was going to move back to the East Coast. I had some shit to figure out. I made this T-chart, and on the side that of the things that don't serve me, I saw one item that said, continuing to be my past self. Continuing to be my past self doesn't serve me. And I thought about it and I was like, okay, so if I'm in this environment where I'm continuously living this life that I've lived for the past couple of years, and like I've been stuck in kind of this box where I've found a lot of comfortability, like being home and working, and I made a lot of great progress spiritually and like in my mind, and like all these different skill sets I've learned over the years, like it served me at a high level. But I also thought about the fact that, am I keeping myself in a box if I stay here, right? Because when I looked at that and I saw like continuously replicating old habits, when I saw that, I was like, well, now when I look at that, I think like if I stay here, am I consistently going to just naturally be triggered to initiate those continuous habits that I've developed over the time living here? And one of the things that was on the side that serves me is being around people who I love and being around people who push me to be the greatest version of myself. So when I looked at those two things, one of them being, you know, old habits, and one of them being around people who motivate me and love me, it was a clear decision that the right decision to make was moving to Texas. Because this is where I have a strong support system of people who I love. We have mutual respect. We push each other. Amazing environment, like best friends group I could ever ask for. And it's here. So it's like, for me to take the comfortable route, right? The comfortable route would have been for me to say, fuck it, I'm just going to stay in Colorado. You know, it's a lot of effort to move. It's a lot of money to move. It's all this shit. You know, I got to think about the dog. I got to think about this. I got to think about that. That would have been the comfortable decision to say, that sounds like a lot of work. I'm just going to fucking stay here. But when I looked at those, it was clear that making the decision to stay would have just habitually made me the same person I had been in that container, and that I needed to step into a new container, something that was new, something that was fresh, something that was clean. And like I said, this isn't just about location, right? For me, it just made sense because of all the assets I have here. But for you, like you listening to this, your environment plays a key role into the way that you step into every single day. And what about your environment throws you off? What is a trigger that allows you to step into old habits? What is the trigger that allows you to fall into procrastination or fall into unworthiness or fall into comparison, right? And like a lot of what I'm seeing here from what you guys dropped into the chat, it's very clear the number one thing that we all shouldn't be doing is scrolling around social media. Like scrolling on social media will only inhibit unworthiness, comparison, like all these different things that are not truth. It's just we're seeing highlight reels, right? I always talk about it like social media is everybody's highlight reel. We don't see, most of us, unless you're creating that authentic content, like most people don't see the raw nature behind this like positive experience that people are seeing, right? Most people just see the highlight. And that enables us to compare. That enables us to think like, wow, they have it so good. Why don't I have it that good? Wow, that person's 20 years old and they're making all this money. You know, I'm 26, I'm 6 years behind, right? Like all these different feelings come from a place of scrolling on social media and like, and ingesting content that doesn't serve us. What's the quickest thing that you could do tonight to get rid of some of that? It's auditing who you're following. Going through your following list and getting rid of people that don't serve you, getting rid of content that might trigger you. I did this a couple of years ago when I really realized that. And like, we all have problems with scrolling. It's a habitual thing that all of us have problems with just because it's something we have easy access to dopamine all the time. Like those social media apps are created to consistently feed you dopamine, consistently inhibit our need for consistent like stimulus. So we will always get trapped in that. But when I realized this a year ago, I started to unfollow people on my accounts that just like their content didn't serve me. It wasn't something I wanted to see. It was a lot of flexing, people like posting Lambos and posting this and posting that. Like I started to be like, fuck that. Like, I don't want to ingest that content. I want to listen to value. Like if I want to follow somebody, I want it to be valuable information that doesn't trigger me to think negative thoughts or to compare all these certain things, right? And reality is like comparison is something that we'll always experience because we, a lot of times, have an altered sense of truth. It's just how it is in human behavior because we are around all this conditioning and society is happening around us. Like comparison will always happen because we will always look at the positives in others and we won't look at the positives in ourselves. We'll inherently look at the negatives in ourselves and look at the positives in others, right? And you've probably noticed yourself doing that where you're like, wow, this guy's crushing it in business. Like this guy is crushing it and I want that business. And you're not realizing something that you have that person might not, right? And it's not a comparison game where you also want to do that. But if you're projecting that onto somebody else, also understand that like you're ignoring pieces of yourself that have that sense of fulfillment and love within you that you are not acknowledging because you're looking in the place of somebody else. You're looking at another thing, right? And every time we take our vision, every time we take our truth away from ourselves and we put it onto somebody else, we enable falsehood. We enable ourselves to think that things aren't the way that they should be, when in reality, they're happening the way they need to be, right? And I just got back from a hike. Like I said, I got lost for an hour, so I was super late. But I got back from a hike with a really good friend of mine who used to be a part of an Entreperform, which was a fitness business, and he was one of the coaches there. And we were talking about it because that company disbanded and he started his own thing. And we were talking a lot about this topic of like, he was pretty reliant on the business when he first started with it and it was his job, right? So like him stepping into that job, he took very serious. And when that company disbanded, he was left with nothing and he had to start from scratch. And he was able to build a fitness business really fast where we worked with him and he scaled super fast and he's doing well now. But we talked about the whole experience of them splitting up and a lot of details around it. And, you know, the whole time he was telling his story, I was smiling because I could see that everything happened for a reason. Like these 3 partners that were a part of this business all branched off, and now they're doing the thing that they love to do. Instead of being in this box where they were only one thing, they were just a fitness coach. 2 of them are running plant medicine retreats. 1 of them's running a human optimization program. Like now they're stepping into what they love and what they passionately want to do to serve this world. And at the time, they thought that this was the biggest like thing that's going to throw their world upside down overnight, was the fact that this company was disbanding. And now they're actually way more in their truth. So in any situation, we will always look at falsehood over truth. And we have to push ourselves to ask questions to see and dive deep into the truth behind our thoughts. And this is something we actually talked about on the podcast with Roxanne today, is like when you are thinking something, we were talking about the difference between thinking and feeling, right? Because we all know there's a big difference. You think a thought, you might feel something completely different. And when you are thinking something, right? Comparison, whatever the case may be, you need to ask yourself where that's coming from. Like, where's that coming from? Like, why am I thinking that thought? And 99% of people don't do that and allow themselves to live in a world that's completely false, because it's skewed by conditioning. It's skewed by triggers. Everything is just trigger. Every situation is allowing them to think thoughts. They're enabling those thoughts. They're accepting those thoughts and allowing that to be their reality, when in fact it's not truth. So when you can take a second to take in the information around you, do that exercise of the T-chart, one side of what does serve you and one side of what doesn't, now you can take a look at that list and you can be conscious of the things that do serve you, right? And when you start to fall into negative habit, or when you start to fall into negative thought, ask yourself the question of, where is this thought coming from? Like, what is the true nature that rose this thought into my brain? Because oftentimes it's completely false. And when you continue to question that thought, you will realize that it's just not fucking real. And that will empower you and allow you to step into truth. And the only truth that we have, for that matter, is right now. Because I'll get into a whole other little tangent here, but when we are looking in the past, we are continuously altering the experience that we've been through in the past. Our brain can only remember about 30 to 40% of an actual memory that we're looking back on. So when we look in the past, that's why it creates that sense of regret or that sense of depression, is when we look in the past, we're only looking at like 30% of how that situation actually happened. And 9 times out of 10, because of how we're conditioned as human beings, we're looking at the negative 30%, not the positive 70%. So we will continue to operate in that world of negativity and then allow those to alter our present moment, right? But if we can stay in the present moment and focus on right here, right now, what's important right now, what's fact right now, we can produce and become the best version of ourselves every single moment. And we can actually be present to the fact that here and now is all we have. Because same thing with the future, right? The future is a guess. The future is a projection. And us looking into the future, even forecasting the future, is just allowing us to create anxiety, create stress, right? Create all these things that start to put us in a panic mindset and not produce at the highest level. So when we look on the past and we try and make a decision off of past, understanding the fact that we're only actually looking at about 30% of that situation, and it's probably the negative 30% of that situation, we need to stop looking at the past. The past doesn't dictate here and now. The only thing that dictates here and now is getting to your personal truth, getting to the truth behind what you actually feel. And when you can get to that truth, you can make the right decision about your environment, about what's around you, so that you can do what serves you and you can stop doing what doesn't serve you. So I want you guys to take some time to think tonight, tomorrow. Take some time to think about your environment and about what you have around you and about who you have around you, right? Who and what, because it's both. It's thinking about what is around you, who you're allowing in your space, who you're giving energy to. You know, think about these things and really figure out, like, where does my time need to go that's actually going to serve what I want? Because there's probably a lot of people, places, things around you that aren't serving you on a day-to-day basis and are triggering you to have those negative thoughts, or you to have those negative experiences, or you to overthink, you to procrastinate, right? Those are stemming from triggers that are around you that are enabling a belief that is simply not true. And we want to live in our truth in order to produce at the highest level. If we can live in the truth, which is right here, right now, and that's it, not even any sort of conditioning in the past, and just focusing on this present moment, and what can I do? What is the next right step that's going to serve me? You will consistently produce at a high level, and you will consistently develop the belief and the confidence and the certainty to withstand anything that life throws in front of you. So audit your environment tonight, tomorrow. Spend some time in thought. Think about what's around you, whether an object, person, place, or thing. I guess object and thing are similar, but person, place, or thing that is around you, that when you pour energy, maybe it's not reciprocated. Maybe you pour energy into that thing, that person, that place, whatever, and you don't get that same energy back. Or maybe it's something as simple as, hey, look, like, I probably shouldn't have any beers in the fridge if I don't want to drink. Right? Like, it's as simple as just looking at, what do I want? What do I truly want right here and right now? And what serves me in the path towards pursuing that, and what doesn't serve me in the path towards pursuing that? And if we can get rid of the things that don't serve us on that path, we will find more fulfillment, more happiness, more success, more abundance, all those things. Because reality is I look at those things that don't serve us, that we're giving energy towards, they're simply energy faucets. So when we're pouring our energy into things that don't serve us, it's literally like us just flipping on the faucet. I don't even know if you guys could hear that, but flipping on the faucet for our energy to just consistently pour out into shit that doesn't serve us and not the things that do. So I want to challenge you guys this week to really audit your environment, audit the things around you, audit the things that you're spending time on, and truly, truly, with conviction, create a list of the things that are serving you and the things that don't, and simply cut out the things that don't serve you this week. Whether that means, by the way, we have a lot of resources to be able to limit the amount of social media that we interact with. I have a limit on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, 45 minutes a day. If I'm on there for more than 45 minutes, it completely locks me out of the app. So we have the access to do those types of things. And it's up to you to adhere by them, because you have the option to not. So think about what you can do to get rid of those habits. And if you just focus this week, the next 5 to 7 days, you just cut out the shit that doesn't serve you, and you just focus on the things that do, you will get a lot accomplished. So what I want to do right now before we drop into Q&A, if anybody has anything they want to jam on, is drop something into the chat that's a goal for you this week. What is a goal for you this week? And not even just a goal, but is what is going to happen this week? And I want you to say it like, this week I am, or this week I will. Don't say it as, my goal is to. Part of me is almost like, fuck goals lately, because it's like, am I projecting something that I don't truly believe in if I'm setting it as a goal and I'm not just saying it outright? Because me saying we are closing $25,000 in business this week, no questions asked, is a lot more powerful than me saying, well, it'd be cool if I hit this goal of $25,000 this week, right? So embody that goal, Don't just set a goal that is, something that just sounds cool. Embody it. So I want you guys to drop, like, what is happening this week for you? I am this. This is happening. Like, stand in that power of setting that goal with the confidence and the certainty that it is happening. Awesome. Love it. Love it. And as long as you continue to stay in that truth, as long as you continue to believe that that is what's happening this week and everything else gets thrown away, instead of focusing on the lack of, you focus on that one thing and embody the fact that that is happening this week, shit will happen, wacky shit will happen for you in order for that to happen. You will have the client, you will have the prospect reach out of nowhere and say, like, here's the check, like, let's get rolling. These things will happen if you allow them to. If you create the space for it to happen, it will happen. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys for interacting. I appreciate you guys for showing up tonight. I love doing these calls, so we'll continue to have, topics for us to jam on that will just be out of the box. Things that are just, hey, like today this topic came to mind because it's something that I'm living right now. A change of environment is something that I'm living right now, and I'm seeing, the repercussions and the benefits of it, right? So we will come with these topics every Monday night, but I also want to open it up for questions. So does anybody have any questions? Drop them into the Automated Coaching Engine chat first if you have any questions, and we'll address those right now. Perfect. Yes, sir. Go crush that call, Austin. Sounds good, my man. Anybody else have any questions? Anything that you guys need? Thank you, Joe. Joe, we got to grab lunch this week, bro. I'm in the Mecca now.
Yeah, dude, I just want to say that was absolutely fire. That's what I needed. I just needed to hear that, bro. I found myself getting caught up in the comparison game, and it's like, I don't know what to do. It's like not even to other people. It's like to who I think I should be, right? Like how far they're. It's like, and like, dude, I'm doing like really good right now, and I'm actually gonna run like the positive protocol because it's like where I'm at now. I think this is a good quote too that I've heard from a friend. Is like where I'm at now would have been an absolute dream a year ago.
Yeah.
And like, dude, we lose sight of those things because we're always pushing for more. We're always pushing for scale. At least that's how that's where I'm at. But it's like, bro, like yeah. And so just like not losing sight of that, I think is really important and something I'm trying to get back to. So yeah, I love this conversation, and it was very timely.
100%. No, I appreciate your tap in there because it's so true, dude. It's like, I mean, we all get caught up in that. We all get caught up in the pursuit of rather than the acknowledgement of, the pursuit of what's next as opposed to the acknowledgement of what we've created. Right. Yep. So like looking at the past in order to say, like, I acknowledge the fact that this amazing thing has happened and that I'm standing where I am today because of all this work that I put in back there. And the me that was standing in the same skin and in the same flesh 2 years ago is not the same me, and I've completely shifted my life and I've got all these benefits. That's the type of shit that serves you, right? Is like sometimes having the lens to look in the past can serve you as long as you're looking at it in that way, right? And that's been huge for Mike and I too, because dude, like no matter how, like I tell people all the time, and that's part of why I really wanted to do these calls. It's like everybody will always have the belief that once we get to the stepping stone, shit will be better. Once we get to the 10K, once we get to the 25K, and like when you hit the 10K, it's like, now I need the 25, and things will probably be a little bit better there. And then when I get to 50, they'll be better there, right? Like, we all fall into the habit of, you know, convincing ourselves that what we need to get to something, we need to pursue something in order to step into the fulfillment of, right? When in reality, that's all we need to do to feel fulfillment. Honestly, what we need to do to consistently feel empowered to pursue those goals is not looking at what we don't have. It's looking at the past, just like you did, to say, dude, a year ago, if I told myself I'd be doing X, Y, and Z, I think I was fucking nuts.
Yeah.
You know? Like, and that's the thing is, like, I think about 5 years ago, I'm like, man, like, I was fucking flipping burgers at Red Robin, like, having no clue where I was, like, considering growing within Red Robin at the time 5 years ago. You know, like, I was like, maybe I'll just be a GM of Red Robin and I'll just grow with that as an opportunity. Like, I would, if you told me I had a dog, a great business, great clients, you know, living in a city that I love around all the people that I love, I would be mind blown, you know? And sometimes it's also about the people too, is like, I mean, human nature, we're here to connect with people, right? Like, we all know as coaches that, like, there's nothing that serves us more than connection. And me even looking at that, to know that, like, 5 years ago, I lost two of my best friends and was probably in the worst, like, social situation that I had ever been in my life. I burrowed myself. I was solo. I didn't hang out with anybody. And I created this perpetual habit to avoid hanging out with people because I would get close to them. I created this habit of, like, oh, I don't want to lose people because of that experience. Whereas now, looking at it now, it's like, dude, I have an abundance of people to experience life with, and that's fucking beautiful, you know? So there's so many ways for us to look at shit, and, you know, sometimes we think our mind tries to tell us that looking at what we don't have is what's going to motivate us, when in reality it's looking at what we do.
Yeah, that's it, bro. Dude, pumped to have you here.
I know, dude, I'm fucking pumped.
Welcome, bro. Welcome.
Omar just had me fucking ripping rape in the woods and shit. I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm already in Austin.
You're here, bro. You are here.
But anybody else have any questions or anything that you want to address here or jam on? Perfect. Well, like I always say, I appreciate you all. Thank you for showing up tonight. If you guys need anything throughout the week, feel free to reach out, but embody those goals, embody those things that you said today. They will happen. As long as you continue to focus on the things that serve you and get rid of the things that don't, you will be able to step into attracting those things to happen in your life this week. So appreciate you all. Have an amazing rest of your night. And if you need anything, let us know.
One sec before you guys bounce. We were talking about this earlier in the podcast, and it was, you know, there's a question that I have on my board up above me. You guys can't see it, but it says, what do you want? And there's a big thing about that. I think that ties in directly, you know, with what we're talking about here tonight. You know, like that's one thing that we often, like, you know, we never really think about as ourselves, at least I don't think. Hence why I have it written up on the whiteboard, so I constantly look at it. But you know, like, if the way that we were talking about this in the podcast is, you know, this is what you should do. Not necessarily what do you want, but here's what you should do. And realize, like, the here's what you should do is likely outside people telling you what you should do. Does that mean that you should do that? No. Do what you want. Boom, that's all I had to say.
Bang, bang.
Bang, bang.
Hell yeah. All righty. Well, Roxanne, have an amazing night. Great to have you on the podcast.
Hey, you guys too. Peace out.
All righty. Have a good one.